All right, let's get into it. Today, we are talking about a movie that, even 2 decades later, is just everywhere. A film you think you know, but trust me, its real impact is so much bigger than the memes. You hear those first few notes of All-Star and you just know, right? That Smash Mouth song is basically the movie's unofficial anthem. And boom, you're right back there, watching a grumpy green ogre bust out of an outhouse. Because here's the thing. Beyond all the jokes, the sequels, and that whole Shrek is love, Shrek is life thing that took over the internet, the original 2001 film was basically a cultural earthquake. It didn't just tell a different fairy tale, it literally rewrote the playbook for an entire generation of animated movies. To really get why Shrek was such a huge deal, we have to kind of rewind and look at the world it was born into. Let's set the scene for what animation looked like at the turn of the millennium.
So in the late 90s, we were at the tail end of the Disney Renaissance, and animation was pretty much run by one single formula. Super earnest, romantic stories, flawless princesses, charming princes, and villains who were just evil. They were beautiful, they were classic, and if we're being honest, they were getting a little predictable.
And then along comes DreamWorks, ready to just tear that storybook to shreds. See, Shrek didn't just bend the rules of the fairy tale, it actively and hilariously blew them to pieces.
The key word here, the one you gotta know, is subversion. It sounds academic, but really it just means taking an established system, in this case fairy tale movies, and flipping it completely upside down. The whole point of the movie was to mess with our expectations. And this table? It just lays it all out perfectly. This is based on a model by a literary critic named Vladimir Prop, who identified these core character types you always see in fairy tales. And you can see right here how Shrek takes every single one and messes with it. The brave hero? Nope, it's a grumpy ogre who just wants to be left alone. The damsel in distress princess? Not a chance. She's a total fighter with a huge secret. The film just goes down the list, trope by trope, and flips it.
For a lot of people in the theater, this was the exact moment. The moment they realized, oh, this is not your average kids movie. The whole scene with Gingy being interrogated is dark, it's a little twisted, and it's absolutely hilarious. It was a signal that this movie's humor was going to push some buttons.
And that was its secret weapon, really. This ability to talk to two audiences at once. The kids were laughing at Donkey being, well, Donkey and all the slapstick. But the adults, they were catching all these clever pop culture jokes and the satirical jabs at places like Disney. It was one of the first animated movies that wasn't just for kids with their parents tagging along. It was actively winking at the adults in the room.
So, the movie wasn't just a hit. It was a full-blown phenomenon. And its success created this massive ripple effect across the entire animation industry. An effect so profound, it actually got its own nickname. Yep, they called it the Shrekening. An animation historian named Sam Summer came up with the term to describe how the whole industry suddenly shifted. Everybody started chasing what made Shrek work: the satire, the parody, the constant pop culture references. What was once so revolutionary was about to become the new formula. And after that, you started seeing these elements everywhere. All of a sudden, every movie needed a wisecracking, slightly annoying sidekick. Scripts were stuffed with pop culture jokes, and oh my gosh, the dance party ending. That became the go-to move for so many films trying to catch that Shrek lightning in a bottle. And at the absolute heart of that new formula was the sidekick. And nobody, I mean nobody, did it better than Eddie Murphy as Donkey. Critics just went wild. USA Today called it the comic performance of his career. He wasn't just a supporting character. He was this comedic hurricane who stole every single scene he was in.
But Donkey's insane popularity did something else too. Something huge. It basically cemented the industry's pivot to casting huge celebrities for voice roles. Now, it wasn't the first movie to do it, but Shrek proved that a big star's name on the poster was a massive box office draw. It changed the game for voice acting forever.
But the film's impact wasn't just on other studios. For more than 20 years now, Shrek has left this giant, swampy footprint all over our culture.
Get this, in 2002, the Academy Awards introduced a brand new category, Best Animated Feature. So, who do you think won the very first one in history? Yep, Shrek. It beat out Pixar's Monsters, Inc. and carved out its own piece of movie history.
And on top of all that, it was a massive deal for the tech, too. Before Shrek, most CGI characters were kind of hard, like toys or bugs. The animation team developed brand new technology to handle soft characters, which let them create realistic-looking fur on Donkey and these incredibly complex, subtle facial expressions on everyone.
And that legacy, it just keeps on going. I mean, we're talking a hit Broadway musical, sure, but also this whole weird, wonderful second life online. The memes, the deep dive fan theories, even full shot-for-shot remakes by hundreds of fans. The film just keeps finding new ways to connect with people.
So why? Why does it stick around? After all the jokes and all the layers of internet irony, what is it about this movie that gives it such a timeless appeal? What's the real message here? Well, it's because underneath all that satire and all the gross-out humor, Shrek has this massive beating heart. It's a story about learning to accept who you are, layers and all, and about finding real friendship where you least expect it. It's this powerful message that just pushes back against what society tells us is supposed to be beautiful or heroic.
And for me, it all boils down to this one perfect line. After true love's kiss makes Fiona an ogress for good, she's crushed. She thinks the spell failed. But Shrek just looks at her and says, "But you are beautiful." It's this heart-wrenching, incredible moment, and it's the absolute core of the entire movie.
Which kind of leaves us with one last thought. Just look at the animated movies that come out today. The type of humor, the celebrity voices, the self-aware jokes, the focus on heroes who don't fit the mold. More than 2 decades later, it is so clear. We're not just watching movies inspired by Shrek, we're still living in the world that it built.